Hi there. It's June the 25th, and in our journey through the book of 2 Kings, we've come to 2 Kings chapters 8 and 9. At the beginning of chapter 8, Elisha warns the woman whose son was raised from the dead that there's going to be a 7-year famine in Israel. And so he encourages her to move, and she goes to the land of Philistia, and she lives there 7 years. And at the end of 7 years, she wants to return and reclaim her lands and her home. So she comes back to make an appeal to King Joram. And she comes back, and as she comes back, just at the time that she's wanting to make the appeal, Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, is talking with the king about the amazing miracle of the raising of her son from the dead. And so the king appoints an officer to actually restore fully to her the lands that she's lost. Then we read later on of various changes in the land, particularly the land of Judah. We know that the land of Israel has gone down the line of idolatry, following after Ahab and Joram and the other kings do the same in Israel. But now this creeps into the land of Judah. We know that Jehoshaphat is in co-regency with his son Joram, and Joram, we actually read, is going after the ways of Ahab. He happens to have married a daughter of Ahab, and also his successor, King Ahaziah, or Ahaziah as we call him, also follows after the Baalim, very sadly. And therefore we see that things are getting worse and worse, not just in Israel, but in Judah also. But Elisha says that God is not going to remove the throne from Ahaziah, because God values his promise to the house of Judah. But things are gradually getting worse in Judah as well as in Israel, as we'll come to see a little later. And then at the beginning of chapter 9, Elisha finally speaks a vengeance on the house of Ahab. And he sends a servant to anoint. He sends him to Ramoth Gilead over on the east of the Jordan, and he sends a servant to anoint Jehu, as king over Israel. He says, take him secretly into an inner room so that no one can see, and then anoint him and quickly get out of there, because you're going to be in trouble if anyone finds out. And so the servant of the prophet, he's one of the prophets himself, goes, takes Jehu into an inner room and anoints him and says, you are going to be king. And then he hightails it out of there as quick as possible. Someone comes in and asks Jehu, what are you doing? Who was that crazy man? The Hebrew word is Meshuggah, which is a great Hebrew word meaning madman. Who was that madman, that Meshuggah, that came and spoke to you? And he said, don't speak about it, but actually he has anointed me king over Israel. And on the strength of that word of the prophet, they take Jehu out and they anoint him king of Israel. And our reading today in chapter 9 finishes with the anointing of Jehu as king in rebellion to Ahaziah and dethroning him as king, and also Joram, who has been king. And it's also about removing the influence of the house of Ahab, and also Jezebel is going to get her comeuppance as well. But I want to go back to the story of the woman of Shunem and her, the one whose son was raised from the dead. There's something that God specializes in terms of restoration. Sometimes we find ourselves in days of famine, in days of need, but there's a promise of God. There's always a promise of restoration, of something that what was being restored. And the glorious thing is that we have a God who specializes in restoration. So just as this woman of Shunem had everything restored to her, even her dead son, so God promises that he will restore to us those things which we have lost when in his faithfulness. Have a very good June the 25th.